Start early.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We have saved the best for last in the NFC. This is our last NFC team preview, and it is, of course, your defending champion, San Francisco 49ers. We started off last year's Niners podcast with no team more likely to win their division in football. This team is full of Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball. As long as Brock Purdy doesn't take a step backwards as a full-time starter, this team is going places. And Brock Purdy didn't take a step backward. He took a step forward as he generated the highest EPA per play of any quarterback last season by margin.
Good.
Big, and then they took their show into the playoffs with a couple of shaky performances down the stretch, most notably on Christmas, where the Ravens pulled their pants down. And in the playoffs, Andy, they won but didn't cover against the Pack. They won but didn't cover against the Lions.
Oh God.
And they did not cover against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, despite taking that game to overtime and having the ball on the doorstep of a game-winning touchdown. I guess it would have been a game-winning touchdown, but at least a game putting a lot of pressure on the Chiefs touchdown.
I can't imagine something in my professional career that would compare to losing 2 Super Bowls in overtime. The only 2 Super Bowls ever to go to overtime.
I mean, there's a lot about Kyle Shanahan that feels like he is full on monkey Puckhurst.
Yeah, he's done something awful. Like he might be the guy in the Phil Collins song.
He might be.
I don't know.
Can either confirm or deny. It's like, I guess here's my thought. The Niners outplayed the Chiefs for a lot of that game, in my opinion. And I'm biased, so you don't agree with me, you can go fuck off. I think the Niners were the better team, and outside of a couple of mistakes, slippage in the first half of that game, they probably could have put that thing away a little bit easier. Ultimately,
times they were in the Super Bowl, they were the better team.
Yes,
for 58 minutes, man.
Yes. That's not how it works, though, when you have Pat Mahomes on the other sideline. And ultimately, the vibe around this team as a defending Super Bowl champion, I feel like, is very different than it is as the Super Bowl loser hangover vibes, which are kind of cloaked around the Niners right now. They are navigating a very challenging portion of their franchise arc, even though they are still paying their quarterback nothing. They have a lot of very good veteran players, and they now need the second kind of wave of talent to be compensated, and that is putting a tough squeeze on the old salary cap plan. And I think they haven't handled it especially well, honestly. Like, there's close to not a vote of no confidence, but a vote of what is going on with the way that they're handling some of this stuff, as 2 of their most important pieces on offense in Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk got no real reps in camp. And we do not really know the degree to which these situations are going to be resolved here, as we are on the absolute eve of the regular season starting. And then there is also a very clear whiff as you look across this depth chart of who are these guys, which is different than there was last year, where it was a lot of, oh, that guy's going to the Hall of Fame. Well, that guy's going to be an all-pro. And so I think there is definitely a waking up, like there's a little bit of like, we could see an adjustment. Market could adjust on these guys. Like, there could be a little bit of a rug pull on the Niners being clearly the best in the NFC if some certain small things don't happen. And I think we can identify those throughout the length of the pod. But like, what is your temperature on the Niners? Do you think any type of Super Bowl hangover is overstated, or is this a team that you have as could take a step back?
There's
when
so
their
many.
window is
There's
closed.
so many other Super Bowl teams that are in such worse cap hell the next year, or
Oh,
have
of course.
or have so many high paid stars that need like. You're not overstating the position they're in, and you're not certainly not overstating how they're handling it kind of poorly. But again, unless those contracts really affect their performance in, if Ayuk sticks around, William, if it really, again, I harken back to my motto, my maxim for this. I don't give a shit for my week one number, how their cap, how Lynch is handling things, how they're building this roster. Like you're right, it's kind of house of cardsy, but we've seen teams pull themselves out of tougher spots than this. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but at the same time, if they keep Ayuk, what am I supposed to say? Like this team's going to have some Super Bowl hangover with Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, and CMC as their offense, and seemingly, this system quarterback that suddenly gets it and is, doing things that you never saw Jimmy do as far as depth of target, as far as yards per attempt. Like everything is not. It's not just dink and dunk and get yak. Like he's legitimately pretty good. So unless there's a bunch of injuries or Ayuk is discontent or leaves, it's hard to say this offense is like not. I don't know. Probably the best offense in the NFC at least. I have them. I'm certain I have them higher than like the Eagles and Lions and some of those other teams that I have rated.
I have them number 1 in the NFL.
Let me see what my KC number is. It's pretty close. I won't spoil that, but yeah, I have them. It's a pretty big number, and I'm pretty hard on their offensive line. It's still a pretty big number. So, and then everything I'm reading too, the people are kind of pumped about the new coordinator as far as getting rid of Wilkes. It was tough because I start reading some of these articles and it's written in the stuff where it's like the Brett Colemans of the world and those guys who are really into film. It's like, look here, where they were in a 2-3 cone, and then this guy slipped under for he curled off and he was going to take this in case the breaker did this. And it's like, oh, I don't know what that means. But like anyway, they were trying to compare what Wilkes did and what we're going to see from our new coordinator here. It seems like a positive. It seems like they backfilled the spots they need to. It seems like the pass rush might be better. And they have a very good coverage unit. And I know there's some injuries, some important injuries to start the season, Greenlaw, Hufanga. But if everybody's healthy, again, I don't know how I can make this a bad defense if they get the scheme figured out and make them everything I'm reading. And I'm really going to be reductionist on this.
Okay.
But it's like Wilkes was coverage first. Like, hey, we set our coverages and build around that. Other people need to win one-on-ones elsewhere. Instead of, what if we set up a pass rush that made Nick Bosa get 25 sacks because like he was. I mean, he didn't have a guy he was flushing quarterbacks away often. I think he had 10. Probably should have had at least 5 or 6 more. Now you got Leonard Floyd. Javon Hargrave is kind of good. You probably have the best linebacker in football. You probably, especially from like a coverage and just do everything standpoint. And you have a good secondary. Like I have a trouble taking any of these units and saying this team is going to have a Super Bowl hangover. It's going to get worse. I guess the weak
sometimes it's out of your hands though.
Yeah, where you pull the pin is this offensive line finally becomes a problem before the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I think the other thing is just like, maybe these pieces up front don't work out as well. Maybe Leonard Floyd doesn't live. I don't see Leonard Floyd not living up to it. Like
Malik Collins, though, you're asking a lot of Malik Collins on this.
I mean, if he's your fourth guy and it's Hargrave, Bosa, and Leonard Floyd, I'm willing to have a Malik Collins out there, especially when he's healthy. We have Greenlaw and Fred Warner behind him. You got Hufanga up in the box.
Yeah, basically, you're kind of getting to the key point, which is that like if everybody's healthy, the hangover is not happening. This team's
the monkey paw. So.
Everybody staying healthy thing is maybe key because like if you do have to backfill, even if it's for small portions of the season, the second unit guys are not good. And
it's hard when you have Hall of Famers. It's hard to get the second.
No doubt. Yeah, when you have no draft capital and you have a very difficult time backfilling with your swings late in the draft. Yeah.
Let's talk about the 2024 San Francisco
49ers
draft.
Well, real quick before getting there, you know why they have no, if you thought that they were going to get out of jail for taking Trey Lance for trading up and taking Trey Lance third overall with scot-free, it is the depth now because they gave away a lot of picks that are guys that could be contributing right now.
Or they could have, wasn't that a Micah Parsons draft? Wasn't it? They could have just taken Micah Parsons.
Oh, don't say that out loud.
I'm pretty sure that's true.
Oh, no.
Is that the 2021 draft?
Oh, God. Is it?
So they traded a couple times, but yeah, they traded up. Micah Parsons was taken 12th.
Yeah, that was their spot.
They could
that
have
was
taken,
their slot. That was their slot.
But
that was their original slot.
If they moved back, they could have had Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Penny Sewell would look good opposite of somebody I know. J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Devonta Smith, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater.
Little monkey pie. Yeah.
There's so many good players.
Many
good players.
They gave away
right after that.
Yeah, they gave away other massive draft capital to make that move up to third to take Lance. And granted, you got a guy who's an even more perfect avatar for what Shanahan wants to do, and you got him in the 7th round. So it all works out, I guess, on that front. But the depth on this team is bad.
Yeah, I'm willing to say that, but again, it's do I want to go into the season and say like, oh, a bunch of guys are going to get hurt, so I'm down on the Niners?
No, but this is like the Bills last year, right?
Well,
nobody was willing to downgrade the Bills when they clearly had a problem up the spine on the defense.
Yeah, but that was after the injuries. This is one of those where, and again, it's I make my week 1 number. It's incredibly fucking high because this team is so stacked. Yeah. But again, on the side notes, I have. And I think that's something I'm working on that I haven't perfected yet because it's not a perfect science. Like it isn't just this guy gets hurt, this happens, this guy moves in, especially on the defense. A lot of stuff shifts around, assignments shift around, rotation shifts around, but you definitely have to have the notes where if there's like a corner and let's say Greenlaw doesn't come back, he re-aggravates it and Ward goes down. This defense is almost super fucked because a big strength is your pass rush. You're taking away your best player at your second level, your best player at your third level, and the pass rush is again full of stars, but it doesn't get home because your coverage sucks all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's very real.
Because there's nobody to backfill.
Yeah. That's very, very, that is a very real reality we could live in where all of a sudden we could wake up middle of the season and if a couple injuries to key players on the Niners defense have happened, we could be like, oh, this is now like a good, not great team. And they're going to still be rated as great because they still have Shanahan and Purdy's going to be efficient as shit. And
they're just some really good Cardinals.
Yeah. Which is kind of what the Rams are, by the way. Like the Cardinals. The Rams are Cardinals, are Cardinals squared, and the Niners could be Cardinals cubed. But the key here, I think, about last year is, and what's wild is they finished with the clear number 1 DVOA offense, number 4 DVOA defense. It's in a failed defense that Steve Wilkes got sent home packing, and I think that overall the numbers reasonably reflect the strength, how good this team was. They went up against other good teams throughout the balance of the season, and they dropped the absolute freaking hammer on them. And the Cowboys week 5 was sort of the wake, the hey, we're here. They lose 3 games in a row at that point, which, Purdy gets concussed. You're playing in the rain against the Browns, and then the Bengals, have their coming out party against you, whatever. Then you come out of your bye week and you just absolutely turbo fuck the Jaguars, and then you you basically killed the Eagles. Like you ended the Eagles season in week 13. It was such a lopsided defeat, and until the loss to the Ravens, it looked like this team was going to basically print their way to a title. And It was ugly down the stretch. People have I think the fact that they didn't cover, lose has really colored a lot of perception about this team's, how good were they really? But I mean, make no mistake, this was, I think at least the best team in the NFL last year. And ultimately we did not realize that because of, they ran into the best quarterback in this generation. So off-season moves, anything you especially want to key on, or have we covered it all?
Losing Armstead isn't great, but I think they backfilled fine. Chase Young, that wasn't ever going to be long-term. I don't think anyone thought. Like you said, brought in Leonard Floyd, brought in YGM to back up in a rotational pass rushing spot, brought in Malik Collins, who isn't horrible. Devondre Campbell is on this roster.
Not my guy.
And he's gonna have to play with Greenlaw.
He's gonna have to play. Yeah, he might have to play with Greenlaw back. He's the strong side starter right now on the depth chart. That's bad.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. And Yadam. I don't know how to say this guy's name right ever. Isaac
Yadam.
Yadam. He had a good season. I think he was in New Orleans. I'm gonna double check that. But they brought in some pieces. The draft was weird because it was like, hey, do you remember like Chris Jones doing that thing? Do you remember like just the offensive line not holding up and losing us a couple Super Bowls? I know there's been a run, but there's a lot of good offensive linemen out there. We don't need a wide receiver, certainly, right? And then I don't know. They eventually did draft someone. He's going to play, but I would have used more high-end picks on.
Yeah, them taking Pearsall in round one, that cost me some serious coin.
Hustling.
That sucked. But again, like I get kind of why if you have a Shanahan system that's this effective with Jags, then maybe you don't invest in that position outside of your Hall of Fame tackle and Trent Williams. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe like they may think of themselves as literally protection scheme agnostic, or their scheme is protection agnostic, and so who cares? But yeah, that looks like it looks like
he was under pressure a lot.
But it looked
fine.
Questionable last year. It looks worse this year.
Yeah, I have an incredibly low number.
Okay, wow. I can't wait to hear what that is.
I'm not pumped about this offensive line.
They were 20th in pass block win rate and 23rd in run block win rate last year. So they weren't that bad. And they don't know that they got that much worse, but we'll see. Let's do the ratings then. The QBOC number is my second highest after Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid, and it is a 9. Where are you?
8.5.
Okay.
But the same can be said.
Do you think this is controversial?
So Buffalo, Baltimore, and San Francisco.
Do you think this is controversial at all? That I would have the QBOC for the Niners number 2 in the NFL?
The stupid fucking argument we had all last year. Is it scheme? Is it Purdy? Well, we made a rating where it doesn't matter.
Who
it's
cares?
good. I might be low.
Yeah.
I might be low.
Yeah.
8.5 is pretty good though.
Okay.
It was hard
the
to
EPA,
divvy this
I
up.
guess here's a more prescient question for you. I don't know if prescient is the right word. What were the absolutely gaudy EPA numbers last year? Like, was there some outlier in there, or is that repeatable? Like, is that?
That's the only thing that held me off here was like scheme, either the scheme or Purdy or a combination of both, which is what I believe are well ahead of a lot of other schemes and quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is the skill position players you have, but scheme rules everything around me, dollar bills, y'all. Purdy did get away with a bunch.
Like, he got away with a lot of stuff.
He was lucky. That's what kept me off this 9.
Lucky.
So he has reverse monkey paw where he can throw right at the center, hit the linebacker right between the 5s, and it's just going to hit the ground every time. Any ball that gets tipped up in the air, it falls, harmlessly to the ground, whereas other quarterbacks just always seem to see that fall into the lap of It's never a fat guy. So I was like, oh, hey, the fastest guy on the defense picked it up. Good. I guess they're going to score on this play. I'm going to have to go right back out there. So he did have a lot of luck when it came to like turnover worthy plays. They just which
that was exactly the answer.
Putting it to a 9.
That's the exactly the answer I was hoping you were going to say, and I wanted to point it out because I feel like it's a fragile 9. If the lucky stuff, like if the turnover worthy plays turn into actual negative EPA plays, and I'm all of a sudden like, man, maybe this should be 7.5 come week 4. Don't think I won't do it. Like I will for sure. Like I have an itchy trigger finger to knock this down if those type of plays continue. I will add one other kind of reason I wanted to start high though. Do you see the clips of Purdy so far in camp? He got bigger. He's on the old Balco routine or whatever the fuck they're doing.
I don't know what to do with that. Like, does it make him more durable? Like, what do we do with that?
Right?
From a skill position, like, but also his injuries were like, it wasn't like, oh, he got hit, just crushed by somebody and hurt his hip or his knee. It was the weird
but
arm
the chances
swat
of that happening, the chances of that happening.
Because I think the strongest guy in the world might have that UCL injury, the way that arm got slapped. So it's, but that's not to say he couldn't get hit really hard, and this would help him out this year. So it's a positive, I think, unless it affects his mobility or something. It's not Fat Albert, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, I think the durability thing is real. Maybe he has a higher likelihood of actually being around for all 17 games, which is important because I mean, really, like you were just hoping to see as he kind of got older that he would get an NFL body, and he has one. He has one now. Maybe it's a little too big, but we'll see.
He's still a little cutie. Look at him.
He's still a whippersnapper. Skill group is a 9. Okay, so I went with 8 here. Let's talk through this.
I mean, do you have the trade going through? Do you know something I don't know?
No. I think I'm just cooler on Debo. I'm cooler on Kittle. Aging curve.
Kittle's too good. Kittle's better than Kelsey this year, man.
Wow.
He's not slowing down. He had he had the highest grade last year of any tight end. He was better than Kelsey according to most grading systems. He's probably a better run blocker. He's a much better run blocker. Like he does everything Kelsey does, just without the I don't know, the benefit of an international pop star on his arm, bringing more. He's very, very good. He's probably the best tight end. You don't have this like top 5 wide receiver, but both of them are pretty much top 10. And then Christian McCaffrey is no doubt, and there's a gap, your best running back, and he brings something to the passing game as well. If Purcell does anything, this is filthy. Like I just couldn't. I don't know what's the problem with Ayuk and Debo.
Ayuk, I don't have any issues with at all. I think he's pretty clearly a top 10 guy across the NFL. I think he's your wide receiver 1. I think Debo is a little bit of a reputation merchant and a question mark about health and availability. I don't really like the physical stuff that I'm hearing about him in terms of his changes to his body coming into this year. Juwan Jennings is a fine player, but not like a game changer as your 3rd wide receiver. George Kittle is also an injury risk. He's probably at best going to give you 15 games this year. And McCaffrey is no doubt. I think he's no doubt your running back 1 across the whole entire NFL. Particularly what he does in the passing game is unique and unstoppable. But they have to be a little bit conscientious about how much they're using him, and the depth I don't love. So
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You're probably right about Kittle, but again, I'm making a week 1 number, and Kittle is playing. Like it matters a bunch because the depth sucks. Like, can you tell me who the second tight end is here?
I can.
Maybe
Eric Saubert.
Eric Saubert. That's what I'm saying. The depth isn't great. Although I do like Ronnie Bell. Everyone likes Ronnie Bell. Ricky Purcell and Ronnie Bell. So Juwan Jennings is kind of good. I want you to.
He's good.
That's your homework. I want you to dig a little into Juwan Jennings. He's a fine.
Well,
third
I
wide
was
receiver.
making, I definitely was prepared to be like, yeah, John Jennings can step in and give you 90, 85, 90% of Brandon Ayuk if Ayuk got traded, but maybe not. I don't
He
know.
only had to play the way they run their offense, and they're going to split McCaffrey out. I mean, Juwan Jennings
here's the
only
thing.
played like 500 snaps last year.
Yeah, and I think
That's fine.
so. Basically, I have maybe I am low, but I have San Francisco as equivalent. I have them as the number 2 overall behind Miami, equivalent to Philadelphia. Is that not realistic? Is that not reasonable? They need to be number 1.
It's a better offense than anyone, I think.
For skill group, yeah.
For skill group, yeah, because nobody has, 2 probable top 10 to 12 wide receivers plus a number 1 running back, a number 1. Like, even if you wanted to say Kittle is not the number 1 tight end, like you have a top 2 tight end, a top 2 running back, and 2 top 10 to 12 wide receivers. Nobody has all 3 really.
Yeah, right.
That's just so hard to put together. So I just struggled.
All right, I'll bump them 8.5 for me.
Jennings.
O-line.
Go look at Jennings grades.
O-line for you. 4. Okay, so I went 5 because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that was the real struggle for me. It's like, is it you use the word, like O-line agnostic? Is that a thing? I guess, but I think that's part of what happens if Purdy isn't good. I think part of the pressure rate they're giving up at times, that might be part of what unravels Purdy if he does have a down year, because it's like you have a Hall of Famer, you have an All-Pro every year, but you do got to start building some aging curve into that as well. He's not young, and then Aaron Banks is legit bad. He's just not good at football compared to like an average guard. Brendel, your center. Pass pro sucks. Good run blocker. They're starting a rookie. John Feliciano is your best interior blocker. I don't know when he's back. It's going to be, I think he had a minor procedure. It sounds like probably pup stint to start the season. So like Pooney needs to really step up. He looks fine, especially since they're starting him over Burford. I mean, that speaks to, hey, this is a guy we drafted and he's playing well. And then McKivitz is okay. Middle of the pack tackle. If he takes a step forward and Pooney plays well and they get Feliciano back, maybe Pooney moves to left guard or Feliciano plays left guard. This could be okay, but for now, with Feliciano out, I had to go with a 4.
Okay. That takes you to a 75th percentile for the offense. I am at the 79th percentile. That's fine. I don't mind starting there. But again, like certainly prepared to come at this with some adjustments.
What was your Philly offensive number?
Philly offense for me was
74.
73.
So slightly below.
I'm meaningfully above Philly offense.
I'll move it up based on some of the offensive line play between Pooney and if Feliciano comes back.
Okay. Let's move to the defense. Your run stop for the Niners is what?
6.
Okay, I went 5.5.
Lowest number. It is probably a weakness here. Some of this is going to be, I as much as I shit on some of your takes when you're arguing with me, like, Drew, I'm making a week 1 number. I'm making a week 1 number, and Hufanga, Greenlaw, there are pieces missing.
Yes,
those things matter.
Yeah,
like we said, starting Devondre Campbell, who probably, he's not going to cover. He's not going to help you, and he's going to be a negative out there, especially compared to what you'd get from Greenlaw. That stinks. And then just a lot of the other guys up front, you're not getting the best run stop numbers. Same, Floyd, Hargrave, Bosa. I have them more pass rush positives. So this is a low number for me.
Okay. Pass rush for you. I'm imagining I'm low. You're probably higher. Where are you for pass rush?
7.5.
Okay, that's a lot higher than me. I'm at 6.5. So I guess I'll defend my low number a little bit here. I take no exception to Nick Bosa being a top 5 defensive player in the NFL. But I do look across everything that you have in terms of how you're generating pass rush now, and I worry about two things. One is a huge part of your success was being able to rotate guys in. Doesn't look like that's very likely anymore. And I do think that the fact that Leonard Floyd is the age he is, Hargrave a year older, and Malik Collins, a guy I don't have especially huge fondness for, make me think that overall this unit is going to be a touch disappointing. So I'm coming in low intentionally.
I really like Leonard Floyd.
Okay.
His grades aren't going to suss out real good last year, but this is, it was kind of a downward spiral the last couple of years where he was playing, who he was playing with. And I think maybe some of that was the coordinating too, but it wasn't that long ago where he was a pretty good piece up front. What are we in, his 7th year? He's not too old yet. We're getting up there. We're getting to 30, but he's going to be fine. This is going to be him, Hargrave, Bosa. Malik Collins is mid. I'll give you that. Like, I have him as a neutral, but you got the Yetur Gross-Matos rotating in. You've got some of the other guys like Elliott probably rotating in. And then, once we get Greenlaw back, and this is why I struggled to not even go higher, like Greenlaw helps. Some of the other guys in the secondary help. Hafunga up in the box helps. Like, there's a bunch of scheme stuff I think we want to change. Yeah, we didn't talk about Sorensen yet.
This is not a bad time.
I did ask about that. I talked to Ryan Noonan, who does a lot of independent defensive fantasy, and he does tackle bets. He likes it because he says like Wilkes' scheme was just like it wasn't designed to get the most out of Bosa, which is probably not your best bet. And it kind of sounds like what we're going to get from Sorensen is very similar to what you would have seen from like DeMeco and even before him and Saleh.
So we're going back to 2022.
We're going to go back to what we saw from kind of the heights of it. So that was another reason that I'm glad you asked that, because I was getting there. Hopefully we're getting a little more from the pass rush, because why wouldn't you use the strength of your defense? Why wouldn't you, use some of these pressure schemes that worked for you in the past with some of the same players?
I dig it. Okay. No strong disagreement. The only thing I want to add about Leonard Floyd, little shade for your boy Floyd, 63rd last year in terms of pressures generated, 363 pass rushes generated, only the 44 pressures. You're going to need a little more. And also, like, the odd thing about Bosa, which is always really weird to me, and maybe that he and Hutchinson fall in the same camp. And I'm not just saying that because they're white pass rushers, but they both feel like they get pressure and they're there, but they can't freaking seal the deal. Like, they're 90% guys.
That was another thing that
weird.
And some of it had to do with scheme. Some of it had to do with who was across from him. But Noonan had like some realized sacks or how many, and I think it was 4.5 sacks more Bosa should have had last year.
Yeah. But this isn't a new development.
And that's hard. It's hard to say. Like, is that a problem with him? Yeah. So, and did Rousseau miss time? Ed Oliver's been a little disappointing. I'm trying to think of like who he was playing with up in Buffalo, because it feels like playing across from Joey Bosa is going to be better for you than playing across from him.
It should be. It should be. Let's answer Pat Mahomes' question here before moving on to coverage. Miller. J. Walter Weatherman or Carl Weathers, baby. You got a
stew going.
I'm going to go Carl Weathers. It's very tough, but I'm going to go Carl Weathers. Because the story after he died of him being they reached out to him on the show to be part of Arrested Development, and they were going to do like some cheesy Rocky knockoff with Tobias. And he was like, yeah, I'll do it, but as long as there's no like cheesy knockoff Rocky shit. They were like, no, that wasn't what we had in mind. I'm going to play myself, and I'm just going to be like super frugal and super cheap, and like that'll just be my running gag. And they were like, That's
Sure.
hilarious. Yes, get it out. So he
Got a soup going.
basically was kind of the creative vision for his own, very, very funny character on that show, which is a story that I found just delightful.
And
So,
when I wasn't, and we're still fighting the Vegas COVID. I told this to my food group. I'm in a chat where they just post pictures of food. God bless
as
those
everyone,
guys.
yeah,
As everyone is.
as everyone is, yeah.
But they
Your food
understand
group, yeah.
my thanks to Grinding Eddie for adding me to that. But I made chicken noodle soup the other day because I wasn't feeling well, and obviously that's the trope. And my son comes into the and he asked what I'm doing. I said I'm making chicken noodle soup. He's like, "Is it Souptober already?" I had to turn away so he wouldn't see me crying. I was so proud. I am very pumped.
So close.
I don't know what the weather's doing where you're at, listener, but it turned on a dime. It is fall. It is guys in hoodies and shorts, and it is football weather right now. So I'm pumped for soup. Back to the
coverage.
Niners. I'm pumped for the Sorensen thing. I think, despite all their foibles as a front office, I think Shanahan knew, like, when he looked at it, we have too many good players to be this shitty at tackling. We have this many good players. We have too many good players to be constantly out of position, because that's what you saw when they struggled at times with good offenses. And he knew, like, my run of hiring really good defensive coordinators hit a little bit of a hiccup, and I'm not gonna deal with that a second year. And they just, I mean, this was like a February, right away, you're gone. Right. We're bringing in somebody else from inside. So
yep. Okay. Coverage number for you for the Niners is what?
Is a 7.
Ooh, I thought I was going to be higher than you. I'm at 6.5. Your defense, you're carrying forward an elite defense.
I'm a Sorensen Maxey, I guess. Like I said, they brought in that kid from New Orleans.
Yeah, he's good. Yiadom. Yiadom's sneaky good. Ward's still elite.
Ward is
Diamador Lenoir was bad as a CB2, but as a nickel, he's good. So he's in his right role. When Hufanga comes back, I'm probably going to bump this up a bit more because he can ball hawk like a mother, particularly when everybody else is locking down their coverage. Do you have any questions about Jair Brown? He seems to be pretty good as well.
I have him. I wrote solid cover safety. Hufanga is 50-50 to be on the pup when the season starts. So if he is,
I think he's trending well beyond the pup.
Yeah, it's
stuff that I read sounds like it's a long shot if he's available week 1.
I don't know. Like, I read something today that was a little more rosy. So
really?
I'm calling it 50-50. But if you will know before the season starts if he's playing, and that usually means the full IR 4 weeks. He can't come back to week 5. So him missing, Devondre Campbell existing, and
that's fair.
Those are kind of your negatives. Rocky Sin is a decent backup, a decent rotational guy. Lenoir, Demodoir, very good numbers.
Demodoir, Lenoir.
Like you said, Jair Brown, good. Travarius Ward, elite. Fred Warner. Fred Warner and when Greenlaw's back, it bumps it even more. But
when Warner can cover anybody. I came in low defense, surely knowing that I was going to have room to bump these guys when they're coming back. It sounds like when these guys come back, you're going to have this as close to the number 1 defense. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Hufanga probably does more for my first 2 numbers than coverage.
Sure, same. Okay, so good. All right. So you're at 68th percentile. I'm at 62nd. So not a huge gap, but enough of a gap that we're going to have some disagreements during the early part of the season. I would guess special teams for you is what?
3.5.
Okay. That's pretty low.
Moody's like not great. They lost Ray McLeod. Moody was okay. Everything else kind of trends a little below average. The fun fact from the Football Outsiders Almanac: they were one of the 3 teams to vote against the new kickoff rules. They cited health and safety reasons. They did not cite the fact that they were really bad on kickoffs last year. And I'm quoting, they were worth a
Self-serving vote.
combined negative 5.8 points below average on kickoffs and kick returns, second worst in the league. And now kickoffs are becoming more important. So it's a negative.
Okay. Intangible for you is what?
8.5.
Whoa. Based on what?
Again, it's the regular season. I love regular season Shanny.
Is he aggressive at all? A little goal line. I mean, like, so here's the thing. He's not aggressive to the tune that he ought to be with the world's most unstoppable offense.
Yeah. I struggled with this a little because
okay, so
how do I have 4. A bad? Yeah, I was going to say you're going to have bad numbers on both these guys.
Well, I'm at 4, and I mean, maybe
talk me down.
Okay. Kicking a field goal when you should go for it.
Yeah.
Going, basically conceding opportunities on third downs to make makeable fourth downs, like that type of stuff. I just am not seeing it, and it's frustrating because if you did play that way with the weapons that you've got, you could be unstoppable. And
I kind of went the other way too, where a lot of it didn't matter.
Yeah,
because
also like the adjustments.
They weren't put in that many situations, and I did pull up Schatz. Aaron Schatz he makes his aggressiveness numbers.
Yeah,
he has Shanahan 15th out of 35.
Yeah, here's the other thing about adjustments. They came back. They came back against the Packers. They came back against the Lions. They had some offensive success in the second half against the Chiefs, but
they make good adjustments.
I don't know if it was even good adjustments as much as it was just like, well, we got a yellow.
The good adjustments are like give the ball to the good people, make the good people on defense make plays. Like the adjustment is, oh shit, we're really good. Why don't we just pull up the good plays?
Okay. Field of Genes, no home field advantage at the Field of Genes. Yeah,
I'll downgrade this a little. I thought
you can leave it at 8.5 if you want.
Top 10. I thought his aggressiveness was top 10. It's 15th. We'll go down to a 7.5. It's still
fair enough.
Still my second best team.
Here's the thing: is 15th is an indictment.
I don't know it because
like it's one thing if you stink and you're aggressive. Okay, fine. You get no credit from me. If you were amazing and you were middling aggressiveness, I can't have that. Can't have it. Anyway,
look, I mean, just looking at it,
this is a great
some
team.
of it is just like how many opportunities you had to do it.
Okay,
I'm gonna have to look at this aggressiveness index a little more. This is fun.
Okay, so you are a hair higher than me overall for Niners. You're at 73rd percentile. I'm at 72nd percentile. I'm guessing we're both plus 7s. Is that right?
I am at 7. I'm a 7.5 on this.
7.5. Hot damn. All right. This is you're gonna be your number one team. I'm guessing you're gonna have them over the Chiefs.
Chiefs are 7.5 as well.
You got them 7.5 as well. Okay.
They're slightly better, but it's like a 74, 73rd kind of thing.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. Well, we spoiled next week's pod.
Don't listen to that part.
Let's look at their schedule and let's wrap this up.
Let's look at who they play. And boy, that's a lot of blue because it's a team that's 7.5 points better than
they're favored in every game. Andy, they're favored in every game.
They're favored in every game, and they play Kansas City. They play my Tampa Bay Bucks. They play Dallas. They play the Rams. They play the Jets. They play the Dolphins. They play Detroit. They play some good teams. Buffalo, Green Bay. Still on the look at early. Very much favored in every game. They have a bunch of teams coming off the bye, though. Dallas off the bye, Seattle off the bye, Buffalo off the bye.
And look at that travel stretch in the middle.
If you remember when the schedule came out and everybody wants to make a big deal, this was a huge news story. Warren Sharp couldn't tweet about this enough. Like, no one has ever traveled this much. No one's ever had this many negative days. Like, it's not zero. Like, I know some of it's overblown and hyperbolic, but like, it's not zero as far as how much this affects the team. It is a lot of travel. It is a lot of negative rest. I don't know how much do you put into that?
Well, I don't put much into it in terms of expecting it to affect their win total, but I will tell you that it's pretty clear looking at this schedule that this was intentional. The NFL doesn't want dynasties. The NFL wants parity. This is kind of a good example of that, I feel like.
Yeah. And again, sometimes it just happens to these coastal teams where they have shitty schedules for travel.
I don't know, making them go to Tampa and then Green Bay and then Buffalo in 3 out of 4 weeks. Nobody else had to do that. Nobody else had to do that. That's terrible. And then Miami a couple weeks later. Like, that is get your freaking flyer card out. My God. That is a lot of travel.
So, yeah.
Maybe they elect to stay over somewhere East Coast between Green Bay and Buffalo. We've seen them do it before. Like, that would make sense to me, and that changes this perspective a lot. But you got to play both. You got to play Dallas, Seattle, and Buffalo coming off their byes. That sucks. Like, if your team is injured at all and they're travel weary, it's just gonna make those coin flip games more coin flippy. And
and it is tough because 3 of your opponents are going to. 3 of your road games are going to be West Coast just because they live in your division. But past that, the closest game you have is flying to Minnesota. I've done that, SFO to MSP, baby. That's 4. I mean, and then everything else, like you mentioned, is East Coast.
And it's all backloaded too.
It is very backloaded. It's not an easy travel schedule. So they'll have to prove it.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think that, like, I mean, count this, go down the schedule for me and count games that you think, like, you can, even as bullish as you are with this Niners team, what are the games that are in doubt? How many are there?
5.
That's it?
I don't know. I wasn't looking. All right. So honestly, the Jets early. Both Rams games, Kansas City, Green Bay, Buffalo, probably Tampa, at Miami, 7 or 8.
Okay. And you think they split those?
Yeah, it feels a lot like last year where it's like,
12 and 5.
Holy shit, this is a really good team, and they win 12 games.
Yeah. It surely does. Man.
Yeah, it does. It's never a. I mean, we have the same conversation about Kansas City where it's different because Kansas City has all their trophies, but San Francisco kind of does the thing where they're the best team at the end of the year, but their record is, this team could have won 15 games. Why didn't they?
They should have won 15 last year.
Yeah, maybe I should lower my Shanahan number again.
They're leaving wins on the field, Andy.
Just dropping it. Like
how did you remember they lost that game to Minnesota last year? That was inexcusable.
That was that was like the Purdy. That was the Purdy. Bad things happen to Purdy game, and that was like the height of Dobbs.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a fucking weird game. That was a super weird game. Like,
there's a handful of no doubters. This team is in the mix this team is almost certainly going to the playoffs. It's going to take a very special season from the Rams or Seahawks to knock them out of the NFC West title contender. But I will say that this has less of a high confidence first overall seed this year than it was last year for sure. Surely. And your division is just more competitive this year. Like, last year, you started out 6-0 in my mind, honestly. And I didn't know the Rams were going to be as good as they were. But you owned Seattle like they were your little brother. The Cardinals were a laughing stock. And the Rams had huge issues. And ultimately, that was enough to have confidence they were going to get the 1 seed, which is why people are playing futures and all of that stuff. But this year, it's going to be a little tougher. And I think ultimately, if they have to put some of the good football together down the stretch and they're tired because of travel and they're up against rested teams, and it's going to make for a little bit of drama. I think it's going to be fun. I think there's going to be some drama. I think ultimately they win the West, but I do think there will be some drama.
Yeah, if you go, and it's not a bad travel spot, but it might be a game they still need to win against a inferior opponent. But those last 3 weeks are Miami on the road, home, primetime, big game against probably one of the other teams that's fighting you for the 1 seed at that point, and then on the road again at Arizona. Like, that's gonna be the narrative. It feels like man, they need this win against Detroit. Nobody needs the bye worse than the San Francisco 49ers right now, Joe.
Yeah.
And it's probably not gonna be like untrue.
Yeah.
Those 2 road games sandwiched with a really, really good offense in between, a really good team in prime time. That's gonna be a banger. That might just be like for the 1 seed, which could be awesome.
Yeah. Could be. All right.
Season-long bets didn't.
You bet?
Like you said,
You bet anything?
Not really. It's not.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's hard to see the super high upside with the high expectations already for like a Purdy MVP, a Shanahan Coach of the Year, Purcell Rookie of the Year. I mean, what would have to happen for that to happen? Like multiple injuries. He can't get the Ayuk trade has to happen, and he has to go Super Scion. It's just the opportunity isn't there for him. They didn't. I mean, defensive Rookie of the Year.
I'll tell you what, man. You know what the dream scenario is? Like, they've already been bet against pretty aggressively week 1 on Monday Night Football. If the Jets beat them in that game, and then 2 weeks later they're at the Rams and the Rams beat them and they're 1-2, like that's like we're having sincere, we're having sincere conversations about, okay, what percent of bankroll is betting these guys every week now for the next couple of weeks because they have New England, Arizona coming up, and what percent is put it into the San Francisco NFC and see if we can ride this out.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, 1-2 start for the Niners would be just chef's kiss awesome. I would love it. Would love it. Let's speak it into existence.
Let's do it. Yeah, I don't have any features on this team. I'm gonna hit the music. We're gonna call it a week. I'm gonna go get some rest.
Great job.
I'm gonna
fighting through.
No, I almost called it today because I was feeling weird this morning, buddy. But no, we made it through. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Hit the thumbs up. Enjoy your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day it is in your